Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Thomas. Tonight we're back here with Josh Scorcher with the 10 worst Sony fails. So again, this is part of the original list. So yeah, these are pretty much the biggest fails from Sony's time as a company. Just gonna do a quick check of the timeline. It's 3 years ago, so not that long, sorry. Like I said, I had to double check. So without any further ado, how about we take a look back at Sony's fails and see what happened. So be sure to like, subscribe for more. Hope you enjoy. Let's go.
I'm gonna beat you, and it's gonna hurt. Because...
Phrasing?
I don't know.
Really? Good times, huh? Good times. There we go.
Sony used to be on top of the world. The PlayStation 2 dominated households, raking up millions of sales with no signs of stopping. Then that glory went to their head, and since 2005 they've been making blunder after blunder while pretending that everything is fine. While they aren't as evil as EA or Konami, their insistence to inconvenience the consumer while trying to make themselves look good is frustrating, to say the least. Well, no time like the present to knock them off their high horse, so come join me in counting down the top 10 Sony fails. And pray that they actually look up the definition of hubris.
More on that later, huh? Alright, first up, number 10.
A recurring theme on this list is Sony getting totally slapped by the Wii and trying to recover by aping Nintendo and failing. Here we had the PlayStation Home, which, in all honesty, was not a bad concept. It was like if Second Life were on a console. They just forgot that life actually has stuff you can do in it. Sure, you could talk with people, go bowling, spend real money on virtual clothes and furniture, and not much else. There was the ability to customize your home, and it had potential, but compared to other customizing games like The Sims, it was pretty underwhelming. It also didn't help that PlayStation Home's founder, Phil Harrison, departed from Sony before it even had the chance to be released, so the quote-unquote champion of PlayStation Home wasn't around to guide its promotion. This left Sony in a tight spot regarding the platform and eventually led to its shutdown in 2015.
Like that.
Now, the reason that it's at number 10 is that for all of its shortcomings, it managed to build a very dedicated and loyal community. People were very passionate about it, and not because of the mini-games you could play or the customization it provided. Rather, it was a nice place for players to come in and share experiences and secrets, brag about their achievements, get information about upcoming titles, and just overall interact with other gamers. There's an online article written by Endream CEO Patrick Uluane that puts it best. Sony couldn't decide whether to make this an advertising platform or a gaming platform when all users wanted was a social platform, and it ended up achieving neither of those. For what it's worth, it brought in a decent amount of revenue, and it made way for some interesting experiments regarding the PlayStation software, but its glory was unfortunately short-lived. In the end, it became Sony's most successful failure.
Yeah, poor Home. They never really got a chance to shine. Number 9?
Lair is an especially sad case because this game looks so freaking good! In a gorgeously designed land threatened by deadly volcanoes, you ride the back of a dragon to take command of the skies above, engaging in aerial combat with other dragons and entire armies! With Factor 5 behind the wheel, it could have shown the full potential the relatively new PS3 had to offer. So what went wrong? The thrill of being able to drive a dragon is pretty much ripped from your hands by poor 6-axis controls. They didn't always respond the right way no matter how often you wave the thing around. To make matters worse, Sony responded to the negative criticism by arrogantly sending reviewers a guide on how to properly review the game. Even with the analog control patch in 2008, the damage was already done. Both Sony and Factor 5 had so much faith in this game, but it blew up in their faces. Especially Factor 5's, who was forced to close its doors in 2009. This won't be the first time the PS3 backfired on Sony, but we'll get to that
promise
later.
Just blame Sony on that one. Number 8. What do you got?
Sony frequently tries to hype the PlayStation as an all-in-one entertainment platform, at the same time constantly restricting basic features. Exhibit A, the extremely hyped 6-axis motion controller. They removed the rumble feature, which might not seem like much, but rumble is something that adds many levels of immersion and satisfaction. Their excuse? It interfered with the motion sensor. Yeah, even though the Wii Remote rumbled perfectly
had that
fine, but
and
musing on the
both.
legitimacy of this claim is moot because the 6-axis worked like crap without the rumble, and they eventually
See?
added it back, so any excuse they had goes up in smoke.
boy.
Exhibit B, removing the backwards compatibility. We can tie the lack
Wow.
of backwards compatibility to the failures of many consoles. So in this day and age, we should know better. Nearly every time you remove backwards compatibility, it blows up in your face, even if you have good games. And the PS3's early life had few exclusives that made the console worth purchasing. More people were playing their PS2 games more often than their PS3 games.
See?
So the PS3 Slim
Yeah,
and its
because
lack
they
of
were still able to play
compatibility with
'em.
the PS2's expansive and hard-hitting library was not well received. And then, oh wow, get this, they did it again, sort of. February
Seriously?
20th, 2013, Sony announced that the 8th-gen console, the PlayStation 4, and the community sighed in momentary relief. Maybe they learned their lesson. Maybe they would fix it so that the PS4 could play PS2 and PS3 games to salvage some of their dignity.
God damn it! Motherfucker.
Are you kidding me?
The biggest criticism that barraged the newer models of the PS3 hurt the reputation and forced them to eventually rectify it, and they did it again. Sony
Yeah.
forced people to subscribe to PlayStation Plus in order to play older games that they probably already owned. There's a lot of consoles out there. TVs only have so many HDMI ports, guys. Exhibit C, contempt for crossplay. After the hilariously smug burn they gave Microsoft regarding sharing used games, you'd think they would be about making things easy for people. Nope.
Nope.
Two extremely popular social games,
Fortnite.
Minecraft and Fortnite, were enjoying life as players could play together from PC, Switch, or Xbox One. Except Sony, where you have to survive alone. That was the actual tagline,
Yeah.
trying to market the lack of a feature as a positive. Needless to say, players weren't
Oh,
fooled,
boy.
and they memed the heck
That
out of
sounds
it.
about
Heck,
right.
even Microsoft and Nintendo joined forces to troll Sony over this.
Honestly, when it comes to this, Sony reminds me of a kid who takes their ball and goes home when it's convenient for them or they're bored. They don't care about the
Yeah.
consumers, they only care about their balls.
Ew. Yeah, that sounds about right. But you really survive alone in Minecraft? Like, come on, man. I mean, I get you can do single player, but come on, the fun of it is just joining communities in Minecraft. And Fortnite too. Like, really? Come on, guys. Like I said, I know this was from 3 years ago, but come on. Moving on. Number 7. What do you got?
A portable PlayStation machine was inevitable and welcome.
So,
Being able to play some Final
which
Fantasy,
one?
Metal Gear, or God of War on the go, this seems like an easy route to success. If you've been paying any attention at all to Sony for the
Yeah,
past decade and a
not so
half,
much.
Sony tends to make very unwise decisions with a hilarious bravado.
I'm invincible!
You're loony.
So, what killed the PSP? The way the games were
Okay,
stored
PSP.
in
Oh.
a device called a UMD, or Universal
Universal
Media
Media
Disc. To be
Disc?
fair, the design is cool in a gimmicky sort of way.
And we're certainly not interested in gimmicks.
Trust me, we'll get to that later.
Unfortunately, the decision to use these discs came with 3 fatal flaws. The first being slow loading times, which are never fun. The second being they take more space. I mean, look at the size of these. The point of a smaller and portable system is to not take up space. Well, then again, there weren't a lot of great games for it, so I guess that problem sorts itself out. The third problem was UMDs have an enormous battery drain. There was also the ability to watch special movies on UMDs.
Why?
Which Walmart hated and pushed to get rid of as soon as possible. Thing is, micro SD was already a thing at the time. It was cheaper and
Why not?
faster, so why use UMD? Well, if I were a betting man, I'd say it's because UMDs are harder to
Piracy?
jailbreak for mods or piracy. But as we are all heavily aware, DRM like
Yeah,
this only
hackers will
inconveniences the
always find a
consumer in
way.
the end because hackers always find a way. Which
True.
they did.
Well, any businessman could tell you that any shortcoming can be averted with some good marketing. Maybe they could,
Never mind. Yeesh. I think I'm not gonna say what that's all about.
Immersive and gimmicky accessories
Okay.
have always been a part of the gaming life, ever since the Magnavox Odyssey. PlayStation was no different, giving us the precursor to augmented reality, the iToy. The iToy was a simple USB camera, but the software that came with it, like iToy
Playthrough.
Play, allowed you to be inserted in a virtual world and get active. Too bad Sony just up and forgot about it. But hey, that was just a test run for the real deal, right? They'll take their future endeavors with motion control seriously?
This controller
no.
allows me to really unlock the most incredible fluid movement in games, and for the game controller to really become part of my own body.
Oh no.
I've already gone over how the 6-axis
Yeah.
wasn't designed nor implemented very well, but their lack of support for it was probably the kiss of death. After
really
calling it
had
a,
Fantastic innovation.
they just kind of let it die. But okay, third time's the charm, right?
About
Yeah,
that.
Sony decided to get in on that sweet casual gamer moolah and hop on the motion controls bandwagon.
You had your chance in 2001, Sony. Maybe you should have
Lonely.
fallen asleep during that meeting where you let the 7th console war slip through your fingers.
And again,
Yep.
with the PlayStation Move, they seem
Idiot.
to be making more of the same mistakes. Not only did the Move have a lack of support, it was paired up with a ludicrously expensive console. Part of the Wii's success was its price. You're saying on top of a
Yeah,
$300
fair.
minimum price, I gotta pay another $100 and a minimum of
So
$60 for new games that don't really
about
work?
$460.
Give me a break. It's a really sad pattern of behavior from Sony in that they love to hype up their products as the next sliced bread, but then get really laissez-faire once the thing is released. That said, the Move seems to be making a resurgence due to VR, so maybe
see.
they'll do better next time?
I doubt it. Doubt it. But, just kind of
Alright, credit where
infancy.
credit is due, the PlayStation Vita was a vast improvement over the PSP. It was overall easier to use, extremely powerful for a handheld, and the games on it looked really good. And Sony was smart enough to give this thing some actual battery life. And let's not forget that the Vita was the only way we could play some really awesome games like Gravity Rush, the new revamped Persona 4 Golden, a Metal Gear Solid HD collection, and
Okay.
anything else?
Apparently not. So, lack of
Okay,
games.
hyperbole, but
Ouch.
you get the point. First-party support for the Vita was scarce. There weren't a lot of big-name exclusives on it, making selling this petite little beast a pretty rough chore. And the list of exclusives it does have is embarrassingly small. Seriously, look at the Wikipedia page of Vita exclusives, and they all pretty much fit on a single screen. It also doesn't help that
Pretty much.
multi-platform titles like Call of Duty Black Ops and God of War just ended up playing better on other consoles. So much so
Yep.
that some of the games I just praised for the Vita eventually got remastered for other consoles. And
Yeah,
then
and
there
on
are these
PC.
Sony cards. For some
boy.
unfathomable reason that we mere mortals cannot comprehend, Sony decided to have the Vita store its memory in these exclusive Sony cards instead of the universal SD cards. Why? Well, the mere mention of jailbreaking makes Sony have a seizure, and this was probably their attempt to combat it. But I also can't ignore the possibility that they wanted to squeeze as much money from consumers as they could by requiring them to buy storage devices
look
that
how
they
small they
themselves
were.
created, augmented by
People
the fact
always
that a
want the
16
32, I
gigabyte Sony
think.
card can go up to $50. Meanwhile, you can
50.
buy a regular and more reliable 128 gigabyte SD card for $20. Maybe one of you guys in the comments can educate me on business practice or something, because I seriously failed to see the logic in this! Yeah, the PlayStation
no,
Vita was
just-
a good console,
ugh.
but that's exactly the problem. It had so much potential and it was powerful enough to rival Nintendo's handhelds that were practically monopolizing the market. Some terrible hardware choices and a lackluster library later, and the Vita became
Yeah,
this
again,
rejected handheld
Sony's
warrior
just
with so
lacking
much
support
power, but nothing to
on
do
these
with
things,
it.
you know?
Alas, Vita, we knew ye well.
Yep. There's just no real reason to go back to it either.
Oh boy!
Now
when
what?
the then next generation of the PlayStation consoles was about to launch, it did
Which
not go
one?
well.
To start with, the original font
Oh,
for the
PS3,
console
okay.
was ripped right from the original Spider-Man movies. I guess since Sony made those movies, that's fine. Except no, it's not. What's even more embarrassing was the price for the PlayStation 3. It was twice the amount its competition cost. Not to
Wow.
mention their way of advertising was hard to
Odd.
stomach. Seriously, just look at some of these commercials.
Were they trying to scare us?
Yeah, I totally want a PlayStation 3 now.
Then we come down to the more technical issues. While it seemed like the most powerful gaming console there ever was, the cell
Well, I guess
processor
no.
was too difficult to work with, resulting in inferior ports and cutting its GPU before release. And of
Yeah,
course, as I mentioned, there
womp
are the motion
the
control
6X.
issues. You know, looking back, I'm starting to question why anyone wanted this thing. Alright, because apparently we're all just suckers for PlayStation.
Who's the fool?
Speaking of, there's the most
Thank you,
tragic part
Bosco.
of this console's upbringing, the destruction of goodwill itself. I've heard stories about riots breaking out, camping customers being robbed at gunpoint, drive-by shootings with BB guns, and overall street fights over a game
This.
console. I know, video games are pretty much essential to life at this point, but looking back at all the glitches and scrapes, Was the violence really worth it? Is this really how they wanted to ring in the new era of the PlayStation? They had screwed the pooch so badly, they actually empowered Microsoft to become the gaming powerhouse it is today. Let's be honest, the Xbox 360 would have tanked big time if it weren't for the PS3's blunders. The red ring of death would have been the nail in the coffin. But the moment that ludicrous price was announced, Microsoft knew they had a chance and they capitalized, causing so many originally exclusive franchises to become multi-platform. So, depending on your console preference, I guess something good came out of this?
Yeah, fair. I think I went more for the 360 PS than the PS3. Then again, I think it was more the Nintendo guy for a while until, later. So, yeah, what are you going to do? So, it's just readjusting. Anyway, so we're down to the final 3, so we're almost done. So, let's wrap things up. Number 3.
On April 17th, 2011, PlayStation Network was hacked. During this time, Sony attempted to sweep it under the rug while fixing the breach. That is, until it was learned that more than 77 million accounts had their information leaked. Realizing this, Sony shut down PSN, dragged their feet even more than a mafia victim, and announced it was due to an external intrusion rather than simple downtime maintenance. Customers were nonetheless peeved about this outcome, and rightfully so. Basically, a ton of people had their credit cards stolen, no one could play PSN, and more importantly, no one could play the recently released Call of Duty, which is one of the biggest sellers for the system. Oh, also some Capcom titles at the time required an online connection to play. The most upsetting thing about that is I can't even fault Sony for that one, so shame on you, Capcom! It's really hard to pin down why they were hacked, but some information does exist. Apparently, in order to prevent people from modifying their PS3s to be able to play bootleg games or remove region locking, Sony preemptively removed the ability to install Linux on the system, which some speculate could be used to modify the console. After this, Sony sued a man by the name of George Hotz.
Let's take us out of the courtroom and into the streets.
Not only a hacker, but also a rapper, managed to crack the PlayStation to allow these features again and more. Believe it or not though, his code would still prevent pirated games. Needless to say, they reached an out-of-court settlement which prompted Anonymous to initiate the attack.
And it worked out so well for them. I mean, people stopped bootlegging on their console, and it only cost them, let's see here.
How much was that?
Lawsuits, fines, and not to mention lost consumer faith. And, $171 million.
So worth it.
Hashtag worth it.
Go on, cautious.
Okay, number 2, come on. How much more?
E3 is a golden opportunity for gaming industries across the nations to dazzle future customers. A chance to show off just what inventive, revolutionary goodies that they've got under their belt.
Or a chance to completely humiliate themselves in a never-ending cavalcade of failures and f***ups. Case in point, E3 2006. It's starting to get good.
They didn't bother showcasing many titles announced in 2005, and instead spent most of the conference talking big game and trying to defend their self-proclaimed integrity.
And we're not about cutting corners to rush a product to market, and we're certainly not interested in gimmicks.
You sit on a throne of lies.
Yeah, because the Eye of Judgment card game, where you have to hold your cards with a freaking camera, is totally not gimmicky at all.
Now that's what I call a duck.
Speaking of, they built up Genji Days of the Blade to be based on actual historical facts about Japan with authentic recreations of ancient battles, and then this pops up immediately after.
So here's this giant enemy crab.
Yes, how could we forget the Battle of the Dancing Crab War of 2006? A battle noble and glorious enough to inspire the beautiful memes of our times.
So majestic.
Adding to it, they were really excited to announce their plans to port Ridge Racer to the PSP. Oh, sorry, Ridge Racer!
Remember that one?
You hear that deafening silence? Nearly no one remembers this game. They were too distracted by how poorly it was presented. It's sad because Sony seemed really excited about this one and how you could use your PSP as a second screen. So not gimmicky! But that blew up in their face and made them a laughingstock. Kind of like a lot of their business practices. 80% of the conference was them patting themselves on the back, basically saying how they'll be reinventing the future with their not gimmicky toys and expensively advanced consoles. But their overall presentation makes all that bravado fall flat and gives the unforgiving internet the fuel to rip them to pieces.
I just don't know what went wrong.
No one does. No one does.
How could this happen? None have beaten me until now.
Okay, still waiting for the honorable mentions, I guess.
If there's one trait I've emphasized a lot throughout this countdown, it's
hubris.
Arrogance, or hubris.
There you go.
And instead of just talking to you about it, I'm just gonna let it play. Enjoy!
I would like my car to fly and make me breakfast, but that's an unrealistic expectation.
The idea of a handheld rivalry with Nintendo is an irrelevance. Those formats don't appear in our planet. It's not a fair comparison. Not fair on them, I should stress.
Hey, come on,
The first 5 million are going to buy it, whatever it is, even if it didn't have games.
The Nintendo 3DS is a great babysitting tool.
I believe that the 6-axis controller offers game designers and developers far more opportunity for future innovation than Rumble ever did. Now, Rumble, I think, was the last generation feature.
Oh, it's probably too cheap.
Nothing good has come from the internet, period.
But I fear that it won't have a lasting impact beyond that of a gimmick.
If you can find a PS3 anywhere in North America that's been on shelves for more than 5 minutes, I'll give you $1,200 for it.
Fun fact, Penny Arcade took him up on that bet.
Microsoft does not concern us, because Microsoft is not a technology company.
It's difficult to talk about Nintendo because we don't look at their console as being a competitor. They aren't worth $599 now, aren't they?
I'm Fiery Joker, and I can't think of anything to sum up Sony better than this clip from Big Fish.
Now there comes a point when a reasonable man will swallow his pride and admit that he's made a terrible mistake. The truth is, I was never a reasonable man.
Yeah, it really goes to show you what happens when you let success go to your head too many times, you know? And you see that one too many times with Sony. You gotta feel bad for them sometimes, you know? Ouch. Well, I guess for now, that's gonna be it. So, thanks for watching, everybody. And until next time, like, subscribe for more. I'll see you guys around. Good night, everybody.